Over the weekend, Donald Trump and Border Control made the decision to shut down one of the major ports of entry into the country, and it was the port of entry near San Diego. Now, following the closure of that port of entry, a number of the migrants who are seeking asylum in the United States attempted to storm the border in an effort to enter the country. Some of these migrants were under the impression that if they got to the border in time, they could convince immigration officials to allow them into the country. Well, that didn't happen. And a few of the migrants, about 50 of them, were accused of throwing rocks and projectiles at Border Patrol. Now, it was notified, or we were notified, that none of the Border Patrol agents were injured. And we're actually gonna give you that exact statement in just a minute. But Donald Trump felt the need to justify his use of tear gas against women and children and made it seem as though Border Patrol agents actually were harmed. Take a look.
And we don't want, frankly, we don't want those people in our society. We don't want those people in our country. But we had tremendous violence. 3 Border Patrol people yesterday were very badly hurt through getting hit with rocks and stones.
All right, so he's claiming that they were very badly hurt. Now, Trump's account contradicted US Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Kevin McAleenan, who said in a statement on Monday that agents and officers, quote, effectively managed an extremely dangerous situation involving over 1,000 individuals. They did so safely and without any reported serious injuries on either side of the border. Now, that's his initial statement. We have a video of what he had to say while getting interviewed by CNN. And I want to be clear, he is not in favor of these migrants. He is actually someone who was appointed by Trump, and he seems to be a Trump supporter. But he's being absolutely clear that no one on the American side was injured as a result of these migrants.
So before we go to his video, look, yesterday I expressed skepticism that the immigrants had even thrown anything. But actually, the guy that in this case, Kevin McAleenan, the CBP commissioner. Look, you have to remember, he's the guy that basically authorized the tear gassing. He's not a good guy. He's, and he thought that these men, women, and children were so dangerous, instead of they had to tear gas them. So I'm not a fan of this guy, but at least you can tell he's being honest. And so, given that, I do not believe that they did throw projectiles. I don't know if it was just water bottles or stones. They said stones, and so I believe the custom commissioner, right? And so it gives you a sense of, look, you can disagree with a guy and still believe him and go, okay, I don't think you should have tear gassed those people, even if they were throwing rocks. But you earn credibility by being honest, right? And then you've got the lunatic in the White House who's like, very badly injured, very badly injured. The guy's like, no, nobody's injured. Nobody's injured, nobody's in the hospital, it's not true. But Trump is a maniacal liar. I don't know what it's gonna take to get through your heads. The guy's a lunatic. I mean, he's got 2 other gigantic lies in this story that we'll get to in a second.
So I actually do want to get to one of the other gigantic lies. So this is a continuation of his slander against these migrants. Here he is talking about the so-called damage that these migrants did when they were attempting to enter the United States. Take a look.
But I really think Mexico is working hard. They were violently attacked. I mean, their police were violently attacked at the northern border. If you look at their border, their southern border, they were really, that was violence at a high level. That was a terrible thing that took place, and they really geared up after that because they had a lot of their policemen and a lot of their soldiers were injured badly. A lot of the people who were interviewed saying, hey, these are rough people. You start talking to them and they punch you in the face.
All of that was a lie. And look, you don't have to believe me because you might be a Trump supporter watching this right now and you think, well, you're just a progressive, you're gonna lie about Trump. No, let's actually hear from the US Customs and Border Protection Commissioner, someone who is a fan of Trump and did contradict him in this latest interview. Take a look.
Is there such a thing as the good kind of tear gas? Every tear gas I've ever been hit with has been nasty. There's only one kind, right? I get what pepper balls are, that's something else. Tear gas is tear gas, right?
Yeah, the CS gas we deploy is standard law enforcement.
Right, there's only
issue.
one kind is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's in our equipment inventory, it's trained. All of our agents have to experience it like you did.
So he's responding to accusations that the tear gas used on the migrants was not the same tear gas used by local law officials or by SWAT teams. So Trump made that statement while he was slandering these migrants. He was arguing, but the tear gas is not that big of a deal. It's different from the tear gas that we hear about local law enforcement using. This is not that big of a deal. But again, you have an official contradicting what Trump said in regard to the severity of that tear gas.
Trump said that it was, quote, a very minor form of tear gas. There is no minor form of tear gas. He just made that up. There are no 3 people that are seriously injured that were part of the customs and enforcement border protection. There just isn't. There isn't. He lies all the time. And I like what I know that a great majority of his supporters are ignorant. And they don't, all they do is they listen to Fox News, so they never actually get the real information. But for the ones that actually get the real information, that watch videos like this, what is wrong with you? Why do you like if a guy on my side, even if I agreed with his policies, just kept lying about everything? And so Trump, another lie in this case is this: there's 500 known criminals in the caravan. Made it up out of whole cloth, not remotely true. All he does is lie, just pulls things out of his ass one after another, right? If let's say that somebody was supporting the caravan, and I think the caravan should get at least be heard for their asylum hearings, they're pursuing it in legal ways, etc. But a guy on my side says, oh, there's 500 nuns in the caravan. But there isn't 500 nuns in the caravan, that's not true. And the caravan actually saved 3 people from death on their way up. But that isn't true. They didn't save 3 people from there. I'd be like, no, I'm not with this guy. I don't know why this guy keeps making up stuff that's nuts. I like that he's supporting the policy I'm supporting, but I do not support a guy who constantly lies. But no, you guys don't care. There's something wrong with you. So there is not 500 known criminals in there. There is no other minor form of tear gas. You just heard your beloved Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection tell you that it's not true. There is no other form of tear gas.
I think what we see with Trump is more jarring. It's definitely jarring because he's a lot more transparent in his deception. But deception from US politicians is, honestly, it's like a favorite pastime. And there's been a long tradition especially in American foreign policy, of our politicians fear-mongering and lying to the American people to garner enough support to take whatever action it is that they want to take. I mean, another recent example in modern times, I guess, is the war in Iraq. The notion that we needed to go in because they had weapons of mass destruction. They didn't have weapons of mass destruction, we now know that, but the fear-mongering, especially right after 9/11, proved to be successful, and it certainly helped Trump in his Bush in his re-election efforts.
No, Anna, that's such a great point, and that's why I get frustrated with the mainstream media, because look, they aided and abetted George Bush's lies, and yes, Dick Cheney in orchestrating that was much more masterful than Donald Trump, and so he told lies in a way that was more palatable to the press. But they were still lies and actually had worse consequences than what Donald Trump has done. And so people got tired of being lied to. So now they don't believe the press, and they believe that it's normal for a politician to lie, even if it's as brazen as what Donald Trump is doing. And so by not calling out the lies earlier and calling everything 50-50, it became basically like the boy who cried wolf. They desensitized everybody to lying, so now people go, well, of course he's lying. Well, what's the big deal? Doesn't every single politician lie? And the media seems to be against Trump. I think what they're saying is, well, I saw all the other politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, lying, and the media never said it. Now all of a sudden they're saying it about Donald Trump. Well, that's because your guy is a lot less sophisticated. Yeah. He's a really low IQ guy. So he just says stupid things that are obviously not true and easily disprovable because he's not that smart. And yes, he has a pathology, he has a sickness he just can't help himself from lying. So it makes the press job easier. But yes, the press was wrong for not calling out the lies on all sides.
Right. I mean, he's not tactful in his deception. And I think the fact that Trump is so ready and willing to harshly criticize the press makes them even more critical of Trump and his lies. Now, with that said, though, we're not done with the number of Trump lies in regard to this story. So in the next clip, he does touch on the tear gas issue, but he also makes another accusation against these migrants. Take a look.
First of all, the tear gas is a very minor form of the tear gas itself. It's very safe. The ones that were suffering to a certain extent were the people that were putting it out there, but it's very safe. But you really say, why is a parent running up into an area where they know the tear gas is forming and it's going to be formed, and they're running up with a child? And in some cases, you know, they're not the parents. These are people, they call them grabbers. They grab a child because they think they're going to have a certain status by having a child. You know, you have certain advantages in terms of our crazy laws.
So that's the one that put me over the top. They're called grabbers. What are you talking about? You think that those people, well, where did they grab the child? When they originally left Honduras? Did they grab a child in Mexico? Is there children just lying around that they just grab to pretend to come into the country? So total and utter lunatic. He's a maniac that makes up one insane story after another. And if you believe him, you are just as stupid and just as insane. There are no grabbers that just grab children. And he said, oh, they walked in to the tear gas. Why are they walking in the tear gas? The famous picture of the mom with the couple of kids, they're running away from the tear gas. She didn't know they were gonna tear gas. She didn't know. You think she walked her kids into the tear gas? Then if she did, why are they running away from the tear gas? Why didn't they just sit there like their original plan? And are they really a family? This is why we live in two different planets and for you to believe that there are grabbers, that they just grab random children and walk them into tear gas, and then why are they running away if it's so safe? He says, oh, it's very safe. Then why did you use it?
It's a very minor form.
It's a very minor form that's very safe. That nothing he says is ever true. God damn, I mean, how 40% of this country has lost its mind. They look at that insanity and they go, oh yeah, I bet they're just grabbing random kids. Kids are littering Mexico, they're just sitting around and they just grab them and they run into tear gas. That's very safe. Oh, that's totally true. And there's Middle Eastern in there. Okay, if you believe that, you are stupid. You are really, really stupid.
Yeah, and what's amazing is how he'll reach for anything in his efforts to fearmonger. So the whole accusation that there were Middle Eastern people on that caravan. By the way, like that would make it worse for Trump and his supporters if there were Middle Easterners on that caravan. He had no evidence of that. Reporters did their research, looked into it, and they realized, no, they're actually all Central Americans fleeing violence in their own countries. But he'll grab anything, he'll reach for anything, and it works with his base, unfortunately. I mean, somehow, miraculously, he had women who support him arguing that it made all the sense in the world to take children away from their families as they reach the border in an effort to seek asylum. How are you going to argue that you are a pro-life individual who wants to protect children when you are advocating for the removal of children from their families and then detain them? You're okay with detaining them in essentially makeshift prisons.
Yeah, last thing, guys, this is, we use the word fascism and we don't use it lightly. We suffered under 8 years of Bush and Cheney, and they they had 1,000 lies, as we explained, and the Iraq War was worse than anything Trump has done so far. And we keep it real with you guys. We try to give you context and perspective, etc. Why do I use the word fascism with Donald Trump? He says there are Middle Easterners in the caravan, as if Middle Easterners are guilty by definition.
Right.
He says over and over about the Latinos that are in that caravan. They're violent, they're very violent. It's terrible, it's violent. There's 500 criminals. None of it is true, and he keeps saying it over and over. Why? He's demagoguing against certain groups. That is fascism.
Let's talk about—
Just take out Middle Eastern, put in Jews. And by the way, they are doing that. They did take out Middle Eastern and then said the Jews will not replace us. And Donald Trump said there are good people on the Nazi side. When he's gonna get through your head, he's dangerous. He doesn't believe in our form of government, and he's looking to demagogue minorities, different groups of minorities, and then to have you turn violently against them. So the real violence is in the White House. That's where the danger is.
Absolutely.
That's where, and Donald Trump has been doing it from day one, and if you support that, then yes, you're also aiding and abetting fascism.
Yeah, and I would argue that someone doesn't get to be the arbiter of what is and isn't violent when they support a government that ordered the murder of a journalist and then the dismemberment of his body using a bone saw.
Every reporter that has gone into the caravan says there are no guns, there's no weapons, it's not true, right? Meanwhile, this son of a bitch went and said, oh, well, yeah, Saudi dismembered and beheaded a guy, but we're making money off them. We're making money. Earlier he had said, why would I be against the Saudis? I make $40 to $50 million from the apartments they buy from me. Oh, so they beheaded a guy. Who cares? Who cares? He said that. He said, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. The CIA says, yes, they did. We all know they did it. And Trump says, I know, but I'm making money. I don't care. And then he has the nerve to talk about violence and violent Middle Easterners. They're your best friends, Donald Trump. They're the Saudis. Mohammed bin Salman decapitated a journalist that lived in America. And you pretend to care about violence and you laughingly dismiss it like, oh, it's no big deal. Well, we make money, don't we? That idiot, that brute, that fascist. And you still support him? Okay, then you are supporting a guy who is in favor of Muslim fundamentalists who decapitate and dismember people. Own that violence, own it. That's who you are.
Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.